Hi, this is Josh Clark with this week's episode of Be Your Best. Today we're here to talk about Thanksgiving, and yes, it is that time of the year. But my prayer and for myself as well as for each and every one of us, that Thanksgiving isn't just about a day or a season, but it's a spirit of thankfulness and gratitude that we have that persists throughout the year. Because I truly believe that the key to not only being happy and fulfilled, but receiving the blessings that God has for us is having a spirit of gratefulness in the good times as well as in the challenging and the tough times. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about the history of Thanksgiving. You know, most people will recognize that Thanksgiving began in 1621 with the Pilgrims who came from England via Holland. They went to Holland for a few years and then on to America looking for religious freedom. And when they got here, though, they faced some very difficult times. In fact, the first harsh winter that they landed here, they lost half of the colony, half of Plymouth colony. And then in the spring, thankfully, two Indians came along, Squanto and Samoset, who showed them how to survive and how to live off the land. And that fall, they had what's regarded as acknowledged as the beginning of the Thanksgiving tradition that we have today, where they set aside 3 days for Thanksgiving and prayer. And there was 90 Indians that came together and 53 pilgrims, from what I understand, were there at that first Thanksgiving. And there began a tradition in the New England colonies of a day of Thanksgiving and prayer. And what's interesting, they also had, though, a day in the spring of fasting and prayer, and then in the harvest time, a day of Thanksgiving. Now, that tradition began to build, and then over 100 years later, during the Revolutionary War, Continental Congress issued 8 proclamations recognizing a day of Thanksgiving and 7 proclamations recognizing a day of fasting and prayer. And then America's first Thanksgiving under the U.S. Constitution, the proclamation passed just days after the Bill of Rights and was signed by George Washington on October 3rd, 1789. He says, "Whereas it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God and to obey His will, to be grateful to His benefits, and to humbly implore His protection and favor. Now, therefore, I do appoint Thursday, the 26th day of November, 1789, that we may all unite to render unto Him our sincere and humble thanks for His kind care and protection." And that was from the first president of the United States of America. So it's no wonder that America has been so greatly blessed throughout the years. It began with a spirit of gratitude, even during those very difficult and even dark days of the Revolutionary War, where so much was at stake. They still took time to be grateful. And then when we fast forward, when we talk about being grateful in the challenging times as well as the good, another great example is Lincoln. You see, from George Washington to Lincoln, it was left to the states to issue proclamations, and so they recognized different days. And then Lincoln set the precedent for America's National Day of Thanksgiving. And it was during perhaps what we might regard as the darkest year in American history, where more deaths occurred in the Battle of Gettysburg, approximately 60,000 deaths than in any other battle on American soil. 60,000 deaths. And even in that year, where the Union lost more battles than they won, Lincoln thought it wise to designate a day of Thanksgiving. So it's interesting, not only from the spiritual boldness and the words which he spoke, but also the fact of it being such a dark year. And he proclaimed a national day of thanksgiving, he said, and praise to our beneficent Father who dwelleth in the heavens. He wasn't shy about acknowledging who the praise went to. And then, again, that tradition carried on. And then in 1941, under Franklin Roosevelt, he set aside the Thanksgiving as a national holiday. So before that, every year a president would issue a proclamation, and then it became a holiday. And so I want to share with you a verse here in closing, Psalms 9:1. He says, "I will give thanks to you, Lord, with all my heart. I will tell of your wonderful deeds." And speaking of traditions, our family has a tradition where on Thanksgiving Day around the table, we all share at least one thing that we're grateful for. It may be a hardship, a challenge that we made it through. Somebody perhaps who played a pivotal role in our life that year. And it's just an amazing time. And I'll share this with you. In fact, it's one of my challenges to you is to do that if you haven't already with your family. And we try to do this throughout the year, even at meals. One thing we're thankful for that day. But Thanksgiving is a wonderful time to begin that tradition. And the second tradition we're starting this year is to actually pick up the phone and to call, speak with, or leave a message to at least one person who has had an impact in our life this year. So I told the family this morning in our morning devotion to be thinking about one person and tell me who that is on Thanksgiving Day. And then the third tradition that we're going to start this year is to place 5 kernels of corn on our plate before we begin our dive into the Thanksgiving feast. And that is to represent the 5 kernels that the Pilgrims put on their plate in 1623 when they survived what was one of the harshest droughts. And it looked like the entire crop would be destroyed. And so they all gathered in the church for a day of prayer and fasting. And at the end, when they left the building at the end of the day, rain began to fall. And for 2 weeks it rained, and they had a bountiful harvest that fall. And so I wanted to remind myself and our children and our family, of how God has carried us through and how we've survived tough times. And also we wanted to, I hope it'll remind us that so many have so little, and that Thanksgiving should not only be about a time of thankfulness, but also in giving. And that takes us into the spirit of Christmas that follows Thanksgiving. And so again, my challenge to you is to begin that tradition of sharing one thing you're grateful for. And then secondly is to call one person this week and express your gratefulness. And I'll tell you, you'll be amazed at how it'll put you, if you're not already just, happy, after that phone call, you'll have a spirit of happiness that, according to a Harvard study, will continue for even a month later. They found that participants in the study, still it lingered on. And so it's amazing. Not only is it a gift to the receiver, but it's a gift to you that keeps coming back. And then third, I want to encourage you to begin a tradition of when you lay your head at night on the pillow to go to sleep, that you name 3 things that you're grateful for as you drift off into a peaceful sleep. Now I want to tell you, I'm so grateful to you. I'm grateful to each one of you, not only for the impact that many of you have had in our lives, but for the impact that you're having in your family, in your community, and the catalyst that you are in the world around you. And now, if this video has encouraged you, let's continue this. And will you help me in being a catalyst to share it with your friends and family, so together we can continue to make an impact. And now, if you'd like to download an episode of Be Your Best, other episodes like this, you can download my podcast, Be Your Best with Josh Clark, or visit beacatalyst.com. Now go out there and make it an awesome day and an awesome week, and I'm so grateful for you. God bless.